Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, how you doing? Welcome into the program. Today on the show we have computer and technology news, and we have a lot of really good ones. Everything from new products to stories to this one that I was just looking at about, well, Anthony Bourdain and Anthony Bourdain, the chef, and there was a movie about his life, and turns out that they were using artificial intelligence to actually narrate the film in his own voice. The question becomes, why would they do that? But then the other question is, they can do that, question mark. Very surprising, and of course that gets us into a whole conversation about the ethics of using people's own voice in ways that they themselves did not approve. And, let's face it, after the fact, cannot approve. It's almost creepy, but of course, Anthony Bourdain, he was a fantastic narrator in his own right, so it makes a lot of sense that people would want to, of course, use his voice for these situations. So everyone, sit back, relax. We have an entire hour of Computer America for you, and before we get started, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, past shows, future shows, all the shows, everything you need to know about the program. You can, of course, find it there on our website. We'll have that updated here soon. I know that I'm a couple days behind, but everyone, it's going to be okay. Let's see. So there's that, social media, all that and more, computeramerica.com, everything you need to know, it's right there. Okay, I think that's it. If you can't catch us live on IRN, which we highly encourage that you do, but if you can't catch us live, then the podcast is the next best place wherever podcasts are heard. Let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. Let's go ahead and get started. So I think that for our first story, we're going to save the Anthony Bourdain one. How about one that no one asked for, but hey, Turner Media, which I think is still the owner of CNN. Well, I know that a lot of you out there are a little inundated, because I certainly feel it, with all the streaming services. Let's face it, there are a ton of different providers that offer a lot of different content to varying degrees of good or bad content. And, well, you can throw another one onto the pile over there. And this new one is the one, the only, CNN Plus. Will be a new streaming service that will offer live and on-demand content in early 2022, saying that the new service will include original shows and movies. And if you know this about CNN, they tried this a couple of years ago. They have been producing their own content. Speaking of Anthony Bourdain, I mean, that was one of their first pickups was not actually it might have been Parts Unknown for CNN, and they have a lot of obviously commentary, a lot of political talk shows, things like that, and the bigger part, I think, of this will be live and the ability to live stream the news, which has always been something that streaming services just can't really get right. The national news, the daily news is really controlled by, one 30-minute segment for your local news provider, your local news affiliates, and then national coverage is pretty much confined to, the big three, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and you have a couple I think there's there's a couple of other news stations out there that are starting to make some headway into it. But by and large, live news is something that is reserved for the other services, and even Fox and its streaming services. Because remember, Disney purchased all of Fox and Fox Entertainment, all that stuff. They kept the live news portion, really the news portion of Fox News, and ESPN separate from these. So ESPN has their own streaming service, of course. But what I'm trying to get at is, even with all the streaming services, live news continues to be a struggle to provide for its viewers, which is why I think that CNN may have something of value here. It's going to be very, very different. So, with that being said, they said that the rumors of a CNN streaming service were true. The network has unveiled a CNN Plus service that will offer a blend of live and on-demand shows that are separate and distinct from existing TV coverage. So they claim. It will debut sometime in the first quarter of 2022. CNN has narrowed down the price, but lead executive told Variety in an interview that there would not be an ad-supported tier at launch. I find that extremely unlikely, and I think the advertisers have a good 6 months to really work on him to, kind of back him down from that. Let's face it, currently CNN makes the majority of its money through advertisers on its cable news show, and the fact that they're hoping to get some kind of revenue from this, and they aren't going to leverage the I'm sure the huge relationships that they have with the existing advertisers seems very unlikely. And if it's not at launch, it's going to be one day after launch. That will not last long, and I can definitely see that happening. Now, the centerpiece, as you'd expect, will be the live material. CNN Plus plans to offer about 8 to 12 hours of in-depth topical coverage and lifestyle material every day, with both veteran and newcomers at the helm. So the anchors will be the ones that you already know, along with new ones to kind of fill in the time gaps. 12 hours, that's a fairly decent chunk of programming that they have to do. And unless they plan on hosting 12 hours of new content every single day, that will add up over time. But I mean, just as kind of like a tune in, catch it live kind of feed, that would be something definitely worth paying attention to. Now, they said that this won't be a digital replica of CNN's usual news, but you may have reason to tune in every day. So again, this is not a full-on replacement for, the channel on the cable guide, but it's going to be something akin to it. Now, Morse considered CNN Plus launch the largest the network has had since it started TV service in June 1980. It was also a chance to experiment with formats that blur distinctions between entertainment and news, the executive added. Obviously, what kind of content they're actually going to launch, who knows? Now, with that being said, on top of that, CNN is going to upload its content that you all are aware of, which include Parts Unknown, as I mentioned before, and United Shades of America, which is also a long-running segment on the cable service. Now, here's the question: will anyone watch it? And regardless of your feelings towards CNN, you have to admit they do have a sizable audience. And the question is, who's going to pay for this? Because I feel like the people who are really into CNN probably still have cable. Kind of no offense to anyone there. Who are they hoping to reel in? Who is the target audience? And is it big enough to sustain an effort like this? And as I said way before, back at the beginning of the segment, throw it onto the pile. There are already so many so many other services out there that, it's going to be hard to get people to subscribe to it. This one part of the article that I did not mention might actually, make a lot of sense, saying that it could be bundled with other streaming services, including HBO Max, Discovery Plus, or any of these other services. That might make some sense to kind of do it as like a value added onto other services. But again, that doesn't really get you established in the market share to kind of just glob yourself onto other services. Unfortunately, it's going to have to be something like Apple Plus or Apple TV or whatever it was, that you have to, really incentivize and come up with your own original programming and really get people to go, to subscribe. And the streaming game, even though so many investments and, you really love to see new content being produced, but the real draw of of new streaming services tends to be the back catalog. What can you see on demand? What's there from the get-go? And that's going to determine how well your segment is going to do. I also feel like CNN just does not offer that much in terms of a back catalog, but maybe they can make that up for something unique, which would be, again, 8 to 12 hours of daily original programming, which is not something anyone else really does. This is going to be a wait and see, but CNN Plus, it's now like one of 20 that you have an option from. It's getting ridiculous. And that's just the sad part of it, is that every large network thinks that they can sustain their own streaming service with their audience. And unfortunately, that audience, unlike cable, where you just subscribe to cable and you got everything, audiences now have to choose. Not everyone has, $300 a month to subscribe to every single one of these. And they're being pulled in so many directions. Again, the question is, does CNN Plus have the value to justify subscribing to them? We'll wait and see, but beginning of next year, that will be the question. Okay, story number one. Story number two. So many different fun stories we could do. Okay, how about a little update to that LinkedIn quote-unquote hacking? We're going to call it scraping, which is, he did not compromise any passwords. He did not compromise any servers. He did not steal any data that wasn't publicly available. All he simply did was use a bot to look at all the public-facing LinkedIn profiles, gather up email addresses that are publicly displayed, gather up usernames, gather up work history, pretty much any information that was available to the public eye. He scraped it, put it all together, and then, sold it as a document. And, put it out there as a document on the dark web. And, that's not particularly good, because that gives people 700 million profiles worth of emails and contact information to kind of work with if they want to use it that way. But all he really did was just put it into a usable format for hackers. He did not really do anything that they couldn't do themselves. This information was all the information that was already put out there by the people who were scraped. Now, the update to this whole story was that he said that he did it for fun. And your idea of fun and his idea of fun may differ just a little bit, but hey, let's find out what the BBC found out about this. He's saying that he did it for fun, well, and a little bit for profit. Saying that Liner says he was also behind the scraping of 533 million Facebook profiles back in April, and Tom told me he created the 700 million LinkedIn database using almost the exact same technique that he used to create the Facebook list. He said it took me several months to do. It was very complex. I had to hack the API of LinkedIn. If you do too many requests for the user data at one time, the system will permanently ban you. So that's really the only thing he did, which was, again, limit the number of requests that the API could do, which I'm surprised that the API just doesn't do that by default. So yeah, he was just he had to get around it by, again, stretching out the amount of time that he could do it. He said that that's what a hacker calling himself Tom Liner did last month for fun when he compiled a database of 700 million LinkedIn users from around the world, which he is selling for around $5,000. Not even really that much money for the amount of time, energy, and effort I'm sure that he had to put into this. Not saying that it was particularly, complex what he did, but hey, $5,000 for 700 million emails seems like a pretty good deal. And you know that they are valid and recent. LinkedIn denies that Liner used its API, but cybersecurity company Sys Intelligence says we need more controls over their use. They say that the details in this and other mass scraping events are not what most people would expect to be available in the public domain. He thinks API programs, which give more information about its users than the public can see, should be more tightly controlled. They're saying that to most people, it will come as a surprise that there's so much information held by these API enrichment services. These API, these APIs that the social media companies put out, and I'm going to link LinkedIn with the other social media sites. The API is so powerful because it allows so many things. Like if, just for instance, any kind of shopping app. Let's say there's a shopping app that wants to let Facebook control user accounts and pictures and location, shipping information, home address, contact information, and of course maybe even billing. The API has to be able to handle all of that information. Now clearly, shipping information, payment information, a lot of these little facets would not be available to the public eye for obvious reason, but the API would be completely justified in handling that kind of information over and over and over again. So for the CEO to kind of say that people would be surprised only if they know absolutely nothing about the information that they are offering to these companies. And really, when you think about it, any convenience that you are really getting from Facebook or by using Facebook or using Google or using LinkedIn, any convenience that you're getting, you are then giving up in privacy. And it may not be painfully apparent to a lot of people, but I hope that events and stories like these, that someone could just do it from home for fun. Everyone would be vulnerable. It's really it's really surprising just how many people are surprised that something like this could happen. When again, he did a little bit of hacking so that he wouldn't be caught, but all of the information is publicly available. So, and again, I'm including the API and the data that it pulls from as publicly available because, Apple did not somehow manage to get your information behind your back and put it in About You. That was a completely different story. But all the information that is stolen is information that you put into your accounts. That's really the end-all, be-all of it. So there you go. Okay, so there's that story. Story number 2. Story number 3. So many fun stories, and some of them a little scary. Some of them just fun. How about one more fun one, if you consider this? So if you're looking for, PlayStations, you may not be the only one. Because this article out of Eurogamer is something else. So last week, the Security Service of Ukraine, who I'm surprised even exists, that's a step forward. Anywho, they say that the Security Service of Ukraine announced it had shut down what was reported as a cryptocurrency mining farm that contained an incredible 3,800 consoles. And they have an image here. You can see it up there on the web, up there on the video portion. And it's a giant warehouse. it's a giant warehouse full of shelves, and those shelves contain numbered PlayStation Slim consoles. And they say that, the PlayStations, they weren't altered in some way to mine cryptocurrency. Instead, what they were doing was they were grinding FIFA Ultimate Team currency. FIFA, if you didn't know, is actually very, very profitable and very, very popular, which is really all you need for something, to earn money with an operation this large. So according to an investigation by the Ukraine business newspaper, sparked by skepticism of the official claim that the farm being primarily about mining cryptocurrency, as well as the fact that game disc can be seen protruding from PlayStation 4s in one of the pictures, they were looking at in the photos is a bot farm that got stuck into the Ultimate Team grind with the goal of selling accounts loaded up with in-game currency on the black market. Well then, Dello said that the security service of Ukraine has so far refused to comment on the revelation, citing the secrecy of the investigation. But the suggestion is these PlayStation 4 Slims, all controlled by PC running bots, farmed Ultimate Team for profit. And just the other day, just the other week, they came out with the amount of money that EA earns from Ultimate Team FIFA 21 profit. Yeah, $1.62 billion was the declared revenue of EA. And I believe the way that this works, and by the way, that's a year. Like that's a lot of money. And then on the year, the amount of time that you put in, you have to just keep playing and playing and playing. And there's even an article here from last month saying that EA's Ultimate Team raked in $3,000 per minute last year. Now, if you don't want to put in the time, you don't want to put in the effort, the energy, you go online and you purchase an account with everything already unlocked. Now, that's where bots come in. And the bots, if they aren't caught, then they can farm up these accounts very, very fast, put in record number of hours because they can run 24/7. And of course, they would then be very valuable to people who, just want the collectibles. They just want to get the best teams, the best players, and all of the, I assume, cosmetics. There you go. Now, Ultimate Team is the perfect game for that kind of operation. You can spend real-world money on loot boxes in hope of obtaining your high-value cards, but the odds of getting one of the best players is soul-destroyingly slim, or so the article mentions. Or you can play the game for months on end in a bid to save up enough for the... for a chance to earn enough in-game currency to buy the card that you want at an auction house. Or you can buy FUT coins, which would be FIFA Ultimate Team, on the black market, and expect about 40,000 FUT coins to cost you a couple of dollars. And to put that into context, Lionel Messi's 99 rated Summer Stars card currently costs about 1.5 million FUT coins on the PlayStation auction house. Now, let's see, to put that into perspective, let's just say 40 of those gets you, so maybe about $100, $200 will get you enough to buy one of the best cards out there. Now, EA warns players against buying or selling FUT coins, saying it could result in a ban. The SBU said it also found more than 500 video cards, 50 processors, draft documentation on electricity consumption accounting, as well as notebooks, phones, and flash drives at the warehouse. With all that, cryptocurrency mining may well have been going on, but it's clear that the primary purpose was to grind Ultimate Team from FIFA. Again, having played World of Warcraft so much, I know how this goes. you can spend your time, your energy, your effort in playing the game. And, really that's the ideal way to do it, is that you enjoy the game, you play the game, you work towards a goal and you accomplish that goal. Or you let these botters who, for some reason, have not been caught, through whatever kind of detection system. But yeah, bots are ever present in these types of video games. Or you pay a bot, or, was essentially you're paying a bot, who has played 24/7, much longer than you, and they're much better at just grinding the same repetitive thing, because it's not a person, it's a robot, it's a program, an algorithm that can do this over and over and over again. So what might take you months, if not years, worth of playing this game constantly, you can pay just a fraction of money to get the same results. And it's, when the economy is kind of set up like this, it's almost unfair that it would make no economic sense. Sure, you could put in 1,000 hours, or you could pay $200, and do the math on that. Would you rather work for 5 cents an hour, or just pay the money? Now, the right solution, the correct solution to this, is for video games to, of course, ban the bots, ban the cheaters, and get the economy stable. But when the economy is so far in favor of people who use bots, it just kind of ruins any kind of enjoyment that you can have. It turns something that these Lionel Messi cards, that are super unique and good, it turns them from being 1 in a million to, well, everyone can get it. You just have to spend a couple $100. It really does change the whole dynamic of the entire market behind it, and again, the ability to kind of have fun with it. So it does not surprise me that an operation this large was, and honestly, it's actually kind of fun to. It's actually kind of fun to see how they're set up behind the scenes. 4,000 game consoles set up to a couple of computers that are all running bot farms, or bot games, to grind the currency so that they can then send it to other people. Like it's kind of fun to see how these things are set up. But by and large, I feel like this would be something very simple. This should be very simple to kind of catch and take down from the server side. Not even so much the hardware side, or waiting until the authorities come in and take it down. Why hasn't EA been able to take down this kind of operation from their end? Some would claim that it's because they enjoy it. That's still 4,000 copies of the game sold. That's still 4,000, even though there are bots, 4,000 bots playing their game, spending some kind of money to, probably speed up the farming process. Maybe EA does benefit monetarily from this by not taking it down, but they really have to. And good job on the authorities for being able to do that. So that's story number 3. Yeah, story number 3. Story number 4. Let's talk about... Oh, close one, and I did not mean to. Let's see. There we go. Okay. You know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and do the story that I closed accidentally. We just talked about the LG Rollable Television last week, and that thing came in at about... what was that? $100,000. It was finally available to the U.S. market. Yeah, and I say available in sarcastically, $100,000. Well, if you don't want to spend $100,000 on that, maybe some stiff competition from Samsung will have you spending the money on theirs as well. And the wall is really something special. It's like a Jumbotron, but they're MicroLED panels that you can fit together, and they all communicate with a central computer, and it's kind of a snap together grid that you can put together and really make any kind of size that you want. Well, the largest you can make it, probably, is about 1,000 inches. And when it all clicks together, when it's all said and done, the wall, as they call it, becomes a 1,000-inch LED display that is comparable to most televisions out there. Like the picture quality is really amazing, because it's one thing to have a Jumbotron, which is an entirely different kind of technology. It's another thing to have a projector, which, projects light onto a surface. But it's another thing to have a 1,000-inch display that is working just like a television. That is something that is truly unique to Samsung. Now, for the technology that we're talking about here, this is clearly for malls, places that need large setups. This is for advertising. This is most likely, unless you are an uber millionaire, this is not something for home use. It's really something else. Now, they said that improvements for this year's display include LEDs that are up to 40% smaller than last year, which Samsung says should lead to higher contrast and better color uniformity. The purity of the wall's colors also has been improved over the 2020 model, and Samsung boasts that it got a new AI processor that further improves picture quality and contrast. Very cool. The display has an 8K resolution with a 120 Hz refresh rate, and because it's made up of modular panels, it can be arranged in a number of different configurations, including the ultra-wide 15,360 by 2016K resolution. And that makes a lot of sense for the image that you're seeing here, where it looks like a banner. So it can display advertisements and banner ads much simpler. But if you wanted to put it into an exact square, which is I think what they had at CES 2019, I take it back. CES 2019 or 2020. The wall was set up in a perfect square, which is also not an ideal resolution, but the point is because they're modular, they can be set up to the individual purpose. Something stuck in my throat. Okay, wow, that's not doing well. One moment. Okay, hopefully that worked. Now, the new IWA series of the wall is Samsung's latest display to use its micro-LED technology. Everything's brighter, everything's smaller, everything better. The point is, the wall releases today, and, well, it's probably not going to be in your home, but it is by far the largest television. And I call it the largest television because it still does use the same technology that a television would use. So this is by far the largest television. Nothing's going to come close to it. It has a very unique purpose, and that purpose is probably not in your home. But if you had the money, this would be the biggest television you could possibly get. It really is something else. And it's cool that Samsung is pursuing this. But there you go. The wall, bigger, better, awesomer. Now, next story, let's go ahead and talk about... Let's go ahead and talk about the Anthony Bourdain one. I'm actually very interested in that because I always liked, the shows that he did. I always liked his narration was always on point. He has a very iconic way of speaking. His tonality, all that good stuff. And by the way, Craig, for asking how much the wall is, if you have to ask that, you can't afford it. And also, they don't give a price because I'm sure each one is a custom installation. And contact Samsung. They don't even give a price for how much the wall costs. Now, let's go and talk about Anthony Bourdain. And they're saying that an AI narration of Chef Anthony Bourdain's voice sparks row. And a new documentary about Anthony Bourdain has ignited a debate after filmmakers revealed that they had used an AI simulation of the late chef's voice. And there's always something about, filmmakers that when they want to start a conversation, they do something very controversial. They include something in their movie that's controversial. They, say something that's very controversial. And I think that might be a little bit of it, where this is not going to be a perfect recreation of Anthony Bourdain and his speaking voice. But I think it's enough of a conversation starter that, well, let's put it this way. If they were hoping that they were going to draw attention to their film on the merits of their film, probably not going to happen. If they were hoping to draw attention to the film based on the controversy of the technology used to make the film, bingo. They certainly did it. Now, the movie in question is Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain, was narrated using archived material supplemented by a synthetic voice reading short extracts of writing by Mr. Bourdain. Director Morgan Neville called it a modern storytelling technique, but some critics questioned whether it was ethical. And Mr. Neville said that the synthetic voice was created by feeding more than 10 hours, and that's why I say it's probably not that accurate. Really, 10 hours is not that much, considering this is a man who had multiple series-long television shows and had documentaries coming out the woodwork. Mr. Bourdain had a lot of audio footage that you could have pulled from, and to only pull 10 hours. If anything, if you have the ability to train a voice generator to sound like him, pulling 10 hours is almost an insult with how little footage that would have been. Now, he said that there were a few sentences that Bourdain wrote that he never spoke aloud, so the computerized voice was used to bring his writing to life. He said that the technique was used in the film with the support of Mr. Bourdain's estate and literary agent, but of course, all you need for the estate and the literary agent to back that up would be a check. With enough money, hey, you could get him to say everything. It does make it a little bit better. I think that they were using Mr. Bourdain's voice with his own writing, with his own book, and he simply narrated his own documents that he had written. That makes it a little bit better, but it does start this conversation that we're having. He said that Mr. Bourdain, who took his own life in 2018, was one of America's best-known celebrity chefs, and in 2016, he shared a $6 meal with Barack Obama. And of course, writing about the artificial voice in the film, New Yorker's Helen Rosner noted that the seamlessness of the effect is eerie. And reviewer Sean Burns criticized the unannounced use of what he called a deepfake voice, which deepfake, that's just the way he's using it. That's just another term for, artificially created voice, I suppose. Now, the BBC is now they said that David Leslie, ethics lead at the Alan Turing Institute, said that the issue showed the importance of informing audiences that AI was being used to prevent people from feeling deceived or manipulated. But he said that although it was a complex issue, the use of AI technology in documentaries should not be ruled out. Saying, quote, in a world where the living could consent to using AI to reproduce their voice posthumously, and where people were made aware that such a technology were being used upfront and in advance, one could envision that this kind of application might serve useful documentary purposes. I could totally see that, let's say, oh my God, who is that Sir? Oh my God, does all the documentaries? The name keeps coming in and out of my head. Attenborough, David Attenborough. let's say Mr. Attenborough said, I agree that you are allowed to use my voice in any nature documentary that is backed up by the latest science. And you use his narration in the form of AI, because clearly, as far as David Attenborough goes, he's narrated pretty much everything out there. You could make a very convincing recreation of his voice, and he is still alive to give consent. And then I guess what they're saying is that at the beginning of at the beginning of a movie, just like you can say, this was based on true events, maybe you have a warning pop up that says, or some kind of notice that says, parts of the dialogue were generated by a computer to better encapsulate, the author's point, or however you want to word it. Maybe letting audiences know that it's happening, getting permission before it happens, make sure that's very important, make sure that happens, and then both of those could lead to a better effect for that documentary. The bigger question here, and the bigger issue here, is that obviously Mr. Bourdain died in 2018. Zero chance that he gave his own express permission to allow that to happen. And it really seems to me that Anthony Bourdain probably said exactly what he wanted to say. He was in television for decades. He wrote books. He was very prolific with his narration, and to kind of go back and say, well, we need to fill in the gaps because he didn't say what he meant to say, seems a little unlikely. Again, it does make it a little bit better that they are simply using this AI to narrate parts of his book that he never spoke aloud. But overall, is it ethical? And there's probably going to be a better way to do this than what this film set out to do. But I think that the film, once again, did just do this to because they said they only did it for a couple of sentences, and any good filmmaker could have worked around the material that they had instead of recreating material that they were never supposed to have. This was probably more of a publicity stunt, though I think that the conversation it triggers does have a meaningful dialogue. And yeah, it should be talked about because this is going to become more and more of a thing, especially with hundreds and thousands of hours of your favorite narrators, being out there. And hey, if you want David Attenborough to voice every nature documentary for the next 100 years, well, there's no rule against that. If you want Robert Downey Jr. to do it, if you want insert any actor with any notable screen time, yeah, their voices could be scraped and manipulated to say anything that they want. Maybe a part of being in the public eye is going to be just like the rights to someone's likeness or someone's body of work, maybe future contracts are going to be the use of their voice in future projects after they're dead. Who knows? It's a very complex issue, and I could see how both sides could come to whichever side that they land on, but it's going to remain the same. Like there is zero chance this whole topic just goes up in smoke and says, oh, no one likes that. No, it's going to be a thing forever, and we need to get out ahead of it and really think about, what is ethical. Now, there's story number 5, story number 6. Let's go ahead and talk about, this one seems fun. So for those who have seen the video portion over the past year, I used to wear glasses. I no longer wear glasses. My eyes were shot by lasers, and we're all good now. But for a lot of people out there, getting your prescription done is a hassle. It's annoying. It's very important because if you have the wrong prescription and you're driving around every day thinking you're perfectly fine, you're good to go. And the things that make you kind of notice that, hey, maybe my prescription is a little bit wrong are very subtle. And it can take months for someone to really understand that, oh, maybe I should be able to read that far away. Maybe it's not just the lighting. Maybe my prescription has actually changed. This product could make it a little bit better. And they mentioned Warby Parker's Vision Test app can help renew your glasses prescription, saying that you might not need to visit a clinic, which would be great. They said that you might not have to visit an optometrist just to get a basic prescription. Warby Parker is trotting out the virtual vision test, a revamp of its prescription check app that lets you renew your glasses or contact lens prescription using only an iPhone and your existing eyewear. Prop up your phone, stand 10 feet away, and you can walk through a familiar "can you read this" test that will gauge whether or not your glasses or contacts need updating. Now, the update isn't automatic. An eye doctor will review the results and give you a verdict within 2 days. If you're seeing well enough, you'll just need to pay a $15 to renew your prescription. But if you're either struggling or just aren't eligible to use the app, Warby Parker will recommend that you visit a professional and get an eye exam in person. It makes a lot of sense. The company is clear that this isn't a replacement for your eye doctor and that you'll need to meet certain criteria beyond what is just mentioned, including being between the ages of 18 and 65 and no existing eye health concerns and a single vision distance prescription. So I'm guessing that if your eyes are two separate prescriptions, then it would not be available for you. Now, the motivations behind the virtual vision test are clear. On top of the renewal fee, which, hey, $15 for every person that uses it, pretty cool. They say that it could lead to more people buying Warby Parker glasses and visiting the company stores. Regardless, it could be very useful if you either can't make it or don't want to visit through COVID-19 concerns. The technology is getting better. This is a very rudimentary way to use the technology to test people for their eye vision problems. I look forward to the day when this would be actually good. Clearly, you could just put something 10 feet away and be like, hey, can you read this? And if you can't read it, then hey, visit a professional. If you can read it, then hey, maybe you don't need to visit a professional. It could be better, but it could also be a lot worse. So I think that it's getting there. I don't know if it's there completely, but if you're able to renew your prescription through your phone without actually having to go in, because for the longest time, like whenever I needed to buy glasses, they were like, oh, you have a prescription, it's over 2 years old, we can't use this, go get a new one. I would probably pay $15 just to say, oh, it's okay. I know my vision is the same. Just give me my stupid prescription. And if it's wrong, then that's on me. But nope, they wouldn't let you do that. And this seems to be a step in the right direction. So I'm all for that. I'm definitely all for that. Let's see. So there's that one. Let's get in. We have time for, we have a couple of really big stories that we just unfortunately didn't really get to. We have time for one more of these big stories, and we can try talking about this. Okay, let's do this. Amnesty International. Not a typical news source for us, but hey, technology and the implications behind it. Check this one out. The Pegasus Project. Massive data leak reveals Israeli NSO Group spyware used to target activists, journalists, and political leaders globally. Those are some big implications. Let's find out. NSO Group spyware has been used to facilitate human rights violations around the world on a massive scale, according to a major investigation into the leak of 50,000 phone numbers of potential surveillance targets. These include heads of state, activists, journalists, and that includes Jamal Khashoggi's family. This is the kind of thing that you get hauled off to The Hague for. This is huge. The Pegasus Project is a groundbreaking collaboration by more than 80 journalists from 17 media organizations in 10 different countries, coordinated by the Forbidden Stories, a Paris-based media nonprofit, with technical support of Amnesty International, who conducted cutting-edge forensic tests on mobile phones to identify traces of the spyware. And that's something that I think a lot of people, really don't think about. Spyware needs to be identified for it to be caught. And if the spyware is very targeted, then there's a much lower chance that it's going to be identified and then taken care of. So, if you're trying to load spyware onto, 500 or 5,000 individuals, and you create the spyware, it's going to work, you don't let it get out there on the web, it's not just a blanket shotgun approach, it's a very measured, targeted approach. It's going to take a long time for that spyware to actually be identified and caught and actually rooted out. Now, the Pegasus Project lays bare how NSO spyware is a weapon of choice for repressive governments seeking to silence journalists, attack activists, and crush dissent, placing countless lives in peril. These revelations blow apart any claims that by NSO that such attacks are rare and down to rogue use of their technology. While the company claims its spyware is only for legitimate criminal or terror investigations, it's clear its technology facilitates systemic abuse. They paint a picture of legitimacy while profiting from widespread human rights violations. This seems to be the spyware that individual governments and surveillance groups. NSO is the reputable arms dealer when it comes to spyware. They will sell you the spyware, and again, on the outside they say, yeah, we sell spyware, but we only sell it to the good guys. We only sell it to those who actually will use it to catch those scummy criminals. But these documents are showing that, no, they're just selling the tool to anyone who they please. And turns out they have become, and I guarantee you that they have become a favorite for people who just need to shut up journalists, activists, and others. So it's not even like, we're just selling a product and we only sell it to the good guys. Nope, they just sell it to everyone. And those everyone may need to shut up people that they just don't like. Now, the investigation, they said that at the center of the investigation is the Pegasus spyware, which, when surreptitiously installed on a victim's phone, allows an attacker complete access to the device's messages, emails, media, microphone, camera, calls, and contacts. So really everything. Over the next week, media partners of the Pegasus Project will run a series of stories exposing details of how world leaders, politicians, human rights activists, and journalists have been selected as potential targets of the spyware. From the leaked data in their investigation, Forbidden Stories and its media partners identify potential NSO clients in 11 countries, including, and I apologize if I don't get this right, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Hungary, India, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Morocco, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Togo, and the United Arab Emirates. The NSO Group has not taken adequate action to stop the use of its tools for unlawful targeted surveillance of activists and journalists, despite the fact that it either knew or arguably ought to have known that this was taking place. They're saying that as a first step, NSO Group must immediately shut down client systems where there was credible evidence of misuse. The Pegasus Project provides this in abundance. There you go. Now, one of the ways that they're really saying it, that they mentioned this was that the Khashoggi family, obviously everything that happened around Jamal Khashoggi and the way that that whole thing was handled was really atrocious. But the Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates obviously wanted to keep tabs on the family to see how they were, kind of talking to the media. It makes perfect sense that they were one of the first ones to be targeted with this, and they mentioned that the Pegasus Project mentions that the technology was not associated in any way with the heinous murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and it previously investigated this claim immediately after the heinous murder, which again, it was being made without validation. So they investigated themselves, said that nothing happened. Amnesty International Security Lab established that the Pegasus spyware was successfully installed on the phone of Khashoggi's fiance, just 4 days after his murder. So yeah, it probably was not used to help murder Jamal, but it was probably used to surveil the family after the fact. And with that being said, the Pegasus Group, they mentioned that it has caused real-world unlawful surveillance, including in Mexico. It's been used in Azerbaijan, in India, where 40 journalists were from nearly every major media outlet in the country were selected as potential targets between 2017 and 2021. And they also mentioned that the investigation also identified journalists in the Associated Press, CNN, the New York Times, Reuters, as well as high-profile journalists for the Financial Times. A lot of it seems like if you wanted to identify journalists, this seemed to be the Pegasus Project was the software that you kind of went with. Now, with all that being said, the lab's methodology report documents the evolution of the Pegasus spyware attacks since 2018, including more than 700 Pegasus-related domains. There is nothing to suggest that the NSO's customers did not also use Pegasus in terrorism and crime investigations, and the consortium also found numbers in the data belonging to suspected criminals. So with that, I think that they're saying that, yeah, they probably did use it to identify, track, and keep tabs on criminals and terrorists. But hey, if and I'm going to break this down very simply here. If you have this tool, if you have a hammer, and the hammer is the perfect thing to bust open this criminal network, and now you feel like as a government entity, you need a hammer to bust open this secretive journalistic investigation. Well, you're going to grab the same hammer. There's no reason why you're going to go to some other hammer salesman. No. And then on top of that, the hammer salesman that sells you all these hammers says, yeah, sure, go for it. We don't really care what you use it for. Just go ahead and use it. They're going to keep using the same tools and reputable tools that they have been using at this entire time. So there you go. It's that seems to be that is the assertion from Amnesty International, and there you go. Makes perfect sense. Really, that is huge allegations, and we'll certainly find out if that happens to be true. Okay, so that might be about all the time for the stories that we have. We have, looking at some other stories I wanted to do, everything from Dish, and Dish the network will pay AT&T $5 billion to serve its mobile customers. If you thought there was a lack of competition, well, turns out there's actually even less so. They're just paying each other a lot of money to kind of share the same network. Italian museums use cameras to gauge the attractiveness of their art. So essentially using eye tracking cameras, they can see what people look at, where they look at, and really if there are any exhibits that just don't get enough, I was supposed to say screen time, don't get enough eye time. And yeah, they'll track that and, kind of take down art exhibits that aren't attractive enough. There's that. There's, of course, the huge data leak that has to do with, essentially everything I just talked about. This was a different source from The Guardian. There's that story, and then of course the music in the background means that we're just about done here. But the last story that we might cover tomorrow is about the Internet of Things. In particular, it is about the Amazon devices and the fact that even when you do a factory reset, well, not all private data gets wiped. And the obvious answer to that is duh, these things are cloud connected, cloud based. Even when you do a factory reset, all the information that device has created is saved on the cloud, and you need to go through extra steps if you can even do that. So everyone, thank you for listening. 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.